Racing with a controller in F1 23 is awesome. However, I have a couple of tips, tricks and settings to make it even better. Let's get it. First off, let's head into the control settings within the game. In the generic settings, I recommend you turn ERS overtake mode to toggle, so you only have to press once to engage and disengage the overtake mode. If you have a next-gen console, this is where you'd be able to enable or disable the adaptive triggers and rumble. The adaptive triggers can actually help massively with managing the gradual input to the throttle and brake that you want to have in racing game. Now after this, click on the control scheme of your controller to see all the button mappings. It's recommended to just keep the standard button mapping. However, we are going to add a shortcut that will be very valuable for you in this game. First, let's unbind the look forward, right, left and back buttons and bind the look back button with something you're comfortable with to look back while racing. Then scroll down to MFD shortcuts and assign right left to brake bias and up down to differential. By doing so, you'll be able to quickly increase and decrease the brake bias and differential without having to open the MFD manually. This will be especially important in F1 23 as brake bias and differential are settings you actually need to change during a race to make the car more balanced. In general, putting the differential up means the car turns in less but is more stable, and putting the brake bias up means you'll lock up less but you'll have a longer brake distance, and putting the brake bias down means you'll lock up more but you'll have a shorter brake distance. Try fiddling around with this around different tracks and you'll see what I mean. Now that we've got our buttons mapped, let's calibrate the controller to get the maximum performance out of it. F1 23 brings in improved traction plus a new precision drive technology that makes driving easier for controller users. Lucky you. However, if you find yourself struggling with traction, braking or steering, then make sure you check out the calibration options. It's gonna be important. This first one everyone should check. Let's first test out our controller to see if it works as it should or adapt some settings to make it work perfectly. Let's open the testing menu and flick this left stick to either side and make it go back to the middle. If it doesn't go back to 0, up the steering dead zone by 1 until this does not happen anymore. Now next up, steering linearity results in the car not being so sensitive to the minimal movements on the sticks. So a higher linearity can help provide a smoother steering and less rough movements. This means your initial input is going to be less sensitive as to when you're pressing the trigger more. I recommend you put the steering linearity on 30. This is a nice sweet spot. Then, let's open the testing menu again and push the left stick completely to the left and afterwards completely to the right. If the steering input does not show -100 for the left and 100 for the right, up the steering saturation by 1 until it shows 100 on either side. Now that we fixed the steering input, your car will not drift to the left, drift to the right, and it will not do stuff you don't want it to do. So that's great. If you're struggling with traction, it's possible to add throttle linearity, which results in making the initial pedal input less sensitive. The more you put throttle, the more sensitive it becomes then as well. F1 23 is easier on traction, so it might be best to just completely skip this setting. But if you do really need to put some throttle linearity, try out 20 and adjust it to your liking. Brake linearity is basically the same as throttle linearity, but then for the brakes. Upping this setting can help with brake lookups and tire wear, as your braking could potentially become a little bit smoother. A starting suggestion for brake linearity would be 30, but once again, it is important to fiddle with it to adjust it to your personal preference. Now for those driving with no traction control or ABS assist, it is important to brake in a straight line and slowly release the brake trigger as you start turning. This will dramatically decrease the chances of you locking up. Once exiting a corner, try to gradually apply more and more throttle as the car straightens out. Lower gears are going to be more sensitive to throttle input, so it could help to shift up a little bit earlier than you'd normally do, which is called short shifting. But for more extensive tips on driving with no assist, make sure you check out my no assist guide on F1 23. Now next up, let's head to the vibration and force feedback settings. The normal amount for controllers is 100. However, if you feel the lack of vibrations within the triggers, you could increase the vibration strength to 120. I recommend keeping the majority of the vibration settings default. However, a reduction in off-track effects prevents the controller from vibrating and being off-putting when contact is made or when going off the track. It could be helpful to put down the setting a little bit. The most important change though is the wheel rotation. By default, it is set to 360 degrees, which is the standard for F1 wheels. However, we are not on a wheel, we're on a controller. So by putting it to 280 degrees, your steering input will be much more responsive. Taking tight turns like the Monaco hairpin will also be a little bit easier. The new precision drive tech should actually help you stay more precise here. Now after applying all of these tips, tricks and settings, you'll be matching or even beating F123 wheel users in no time. Check out my other F123 guides, and if this video was of any help, then make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!